Yesterday, we have finished reading the first chapter, The Human Condition. We take around 21 days to finish, to reach this point. Today, I think it's good to do a recap of what we have read. Let's take a look. We started with the first section. Okay, let me scroll through. Old age, illness, and death. For each sutta, I'll try to do a quick summary. The first sutta that we read, Aging and Death, is about whoever who is born will always will not be free from aging and death. Whether you are affluent Khatiyas, rich, with great wealth and property, abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and commodities, because they have been born, are not free from aging and death. And the Buddha even add, even those monks who are Arahant, even those whose taints are destroyed, who have lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached their own goal, utterly destroyed the fetters of existence, are completely liberated. Even for them, the body is subject to breaking up, subject to being laid down. Here, there's an important difference noted by the footnote. When speaking of the Arahant, the Buddha does not describe their destiny as aging and death, but as a mere breaking up and discarding of the body. Why? This is because the Arahant already free from the notions of I and mind. Does not conceive the decay and dissolution of the body as aging and death of an I. So it's just simply discarding the body. The next sutta is called the Simile of the Mountain. It's between the conversation of the king and the Buddha, and the Buddha gave a simile of aging and death, like a mountain rolling from all four sides. And then the Buddha asked the king, then what would you do if something like this, if the actual mountain comes rolling in on you? Then the king replied here, what else should be done but to live by the Dhamma, to live righteously, and to do wholesome and meritorious deeds? And this is the Buddha's way of steering the king towards living from an unwholesome way to the wholesome way of living. The next sutta is called the Divine Messengers, a conversation between a man and Yama, the Lord of Death. The Lord of Death directs, question the men whether they have seen these three divine messengers. What are the three divine messengers? The first one, old men or old women to show aging. The second divine messenger, a sick man or sick woman to show illness. And the third divine messenger, a woman or a man, 2 or 3 days that the corpse swollen, basically a corpse, to show that everyone is subject to death. These are the three divine messengers, and that is the three sutta for the first section. Old age, illness, and death. Any questions or comments for the first section? Okay, if not, I will continue the recap for the second section, the tribulations of unreflective living. The first sutta that we read is called the dart of painful feeling. When we, the uninstructed worldling, experiences a painful feeling, we feel two feelings. First strike of the dart, bodily one. Second strike of the dart, mental one. But for the Arahant, they get the first strike, the bodily pain, but they don't have to suffer the mental pain. So they only get struck once. So how can we get to the point where we can only feel can only be stricken by one dart? We can use this 5 major contemplation: the origin and the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape. In the case of feelings, the painful feeling. Okay, next sutta. Here it is called the vicissitudes of life, but other places you will see translations such as 8 worldly conditions or 8 worldly winds. What are these 8 worldly conditions? Gain and loss. It's a 4 pairs: gain and loss, fame and disrepute, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. When we encounter these 8 worldly conditions, we will be elated when we met with the positives, and we will be dejected when we met with the negative. But when the Arahants, the noble disciples, encounter these 8 worldly conditions, they are equanimous, they are not affected. That's for the second sutta. The third sutta is about agitation through clinging and non-agitation through non-clinging. When we, again, the uninstructed worldlings, this is the full description. Not a seer of the noble ones, unskilled and undisciplined in the Dharma, not a seer of superior person, regards form as self, self as possessing form, form as in self, or self as in form. We cling to the 5 aggregates. And then through this clinging, we become agitated. What are the 5 aggregates? Very quickly: form, feeling, perception, volitional formation, and consciousness. You can see in this orange highlight. This is how we always have agitation through clinging. But for the Arahants, they are skilled and disciplined in their Dharma, and because their mind is not obsessed, they're not frightened, they're not distressed, anxious, and through non-clinging, the Arahants does not become agitated. That's the last sutta of this section, Tribulations of Unreflective Living. Any questions or comments for this section? If not, I will continue the summary. A world in turmoil. The first sutta is called The Origin of Conflict. Basically, why people fight with other people. In the case of most people, we fight because of sensual pleasures. In the case of ascetics, they fight because of attachment to views. Like this. Sometimes you can read this in the news when a wealthy family, the parents pass away, the kids, they fight for inheritance. So that is one case of fighting because of sensual pleasures. Yeah, householders fight with households. Siblings fight with siblings. The next sutta, why do beings live in hate? This is interesting. People wish to live in peace, but instead of living in peace, we fight with each other. The first reasoning that the Buddha gives, ruler of the devas, is the bonds of envy and niggardliness. And then continues on. Where does envy and niggardliness arise from? It arises from liking and disliking. Then liking and disliking arise from desire, and desire arises from thinking. Finally, thinking arises from elaborated perceptions and notions. Whatever labeling that our mind does to our experience. Okay, that's for the second sutta, why do beings live in hate? The third sutta is called the dark chain of causation. So a chain of reasoning, independence of feeling, there's craving, and then from craving there's pursuit, from pursuit there's gain, from gain there's decision making, and from decision making there's desire and lust. From desire and lust there's attachment, from attachment there's possessiveness, from possessiveness there's niggardliness, and then the last one after niggardliness there's defensiveness. And because of defensiveness, everything, various evil, unwholesome things spring up. The taking up of clubs and weapons, conflicts, quarrels, disputes, insults, slander, and falsehood. That's the third sutta. The fourth sutta, the roots of violence and oppression, basically saying that greed, hatred, and delusion are the roots of all unwholesome things. Any questions or comments for this section? If not, I'll continue summarizing the last section. Without discoverable beginning, which describes and the Buddha gave various similes with regards to samsara. The first one is grass and stick. The Buddha used the analogy of even if you gathered this many grasses and sticks, grass and sticks, yeah, and then you count the sequence of one's the man's mothers, grandmothers, yeah, the sequence would not come to an end, but the grass and sticks are already exhausted. This one covering the female side. The next sutta, balls of clay. If let's say there's a balls of clay with the size of the earth, and then we pick up one by one, and then make it into the size of a, let's see how to pronounce this, juju. Yeah. Balls of clay the size of juju kernel, so basically something small like this. And then we pick up the balls one by one. This is my father. This is my father's father. The balls of clay will have run out first before the sequence of fathers and grandfathers come to an end. This is to show how long have we wandered through the samsara. Yeah, so this is covering the male side, while the previous sutta is covering the mother side. The third similes is talking about how long is an eon is with the simile of the mountain. When there is a mountain of yojana, the footnote says is about 7 miles. You can imagine a mountain with a 7 miles high, 7 miles long, and 7 miles wide. A man, maybe one day waken, take a piece of fine cloth every 100 years. So one lifetime, go to the mountain. So one time, worn away. And then the next lifetime, I have nothing better to do. Get the same cloth, wipe away the mountain again. Yeah. Every 100 years, we can do this. Each lifetime do once. When this mountain with 7 miles high, worn away and eliminated, the Buddha says, this is the password. An eon would still not have come to it. That's how long an eon is. That's the third sutta. The fourth sutta, the river Ganges. The Buddha gives the simile of the sand. The grains of sand between the point where the river Ganges originates and the point where it enters the great ocean. Can you count the grain of sand? It is not easy to count this and to say how many grains of sand are there. Yeah, so the Buddha told the Brahmin. So it is also not easy to count how many eons, how many hundreds of eons, how many thousands, how many hundreds of thousands of eons have passed, have lapsed. Why? Because this samsara is without discoverable beginning. The last sutta of this chapter is called Dog on a Leash. One more simile that the Buddha gives. When there's a time, this earth, you imagine, this earth is covered mostly by seas. There's a time when the great ocean dries up in this earth, evaporates, no longer exists. Even then, there's no making an end of suffering for us, for those beings roaming and wandering on, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. Another simile the Buddha gives. Scenario, the king of mountains burns up and Paris no longer exists. Still, there's no making an end of suffering for beings roaming and wandering. The next simile, the great earth burns up and perishes. Still, there's no making an end of suffering. And then the next simile that the Buddha gives is like a dog tied up on a leash, bound to a strong post or pillar. We just keep running around and revolving around the same post or pillar. Then we take a look at ourselves. When we regard the 5 aggregates as self, we also keeps running around and revolving around the pillars, the poles of 5 aggregates. So we are not that different from the dog. Because of this, we are not free from birth, aging, and death, not free from sorrow, lamentation, pain, dejection, and despair, not free from suffering. With that, we concluded the summary, the recap of the first chapter, the human condition. Any questions or comments? Tomorrow or Sunday, maybe we can get some sharing of you. How do you like this new book? Any feedbacks and so on. And then we will cover the next chapter, the bringer of light. If no comments or questions from you, then we can end just nice at 8 a.m. Perfect timing. Let's do a dedication. 愿消三障诸烦恼，愿得智慧真明了。普愿罪障悉消除，实是常行菩萨道。阿弥陀佛。Till we meet again, may we be guided by the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have an unconditioned Friday ahead. Thanks everyone for participating. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.